Hello, my name's Gary Ford, Managing Director of Tiger Hobbies Limited, UK hobby importers and distributors, and welcome to this short video series about our Armies in Plastic range, which Tiger Hobbies are the UK agent. Back in 1998, Anthony or Tony Cicerello formed in the United States Armies in Plastic to provide the plastic toy soldier enthusiast a range of 1/32 scale toy soldiers, a little different from the usual cowboys and Indians, plus various soldiers from World War II. Armies in Plastic cover the French and Indian Wars, or what is known as the 7-Year Wars, the American War of Independence, the War of 1812 when the British tried to retake America, the Napoleonic Wars, the US Civil War, the Zulu Wars, the War in Sudan at the end of empire, the Boer War, Spanish-American War, and finally the Great War. You have infantry sets, mounted cavalry and artillery sets, generally for each period. 1/32 scale is the standard for model and plastic toy soldiers, with the author H.G. Wells in the late 19th century compiling rules for war games called Little Wars, which were used by military colleges until the 1950s. Tiger Hobbies have also done a small exclusive range of World War I PALS regiment from the British Army, limited to just 200 sets per regiment. The British Army of the Great War was basically a war of 5 armies spread over the period of the Great War, starting in 1914 with the BEF, or British Expeditionary Force, known as the Old Contemptibles, after the German Kaiser called those that little contemptible army, or the contemptible little army. These soldiers were lost by early 1915, or most of them. The Territorials had to hold the line in 1915 till a new army could be trained. Remember, it takes at least a year to train a full army. Kitchener's Volunteers of 1916. Remember, your country needs you. These soldiers fought at the Battle of the Somme, where the British Army lost 60,000 casualties on the very first day, including 20,000 dead. One of the ideas was PALS regiments, or trade or affiliated regiments, were from the same street, same village, same town, or trade like a lawyer's regiment, or a shoemaker's regiment, and even a footballer's regiment, which we've done to honour the fact that we sponsor both Barnsley Football Club and Frickley Athletic Football Club. Tiger Hobbies have broke this down into 7 regiments. So we've got the Barnsley Pals, we've got the Accrington Pals, Bradford Pals, Preston Pals, Liverpool Pals, the Grimsby Chums, the only Chums regiment, and finally the Footballers regiments, and we will be adding regiments as we go along. In 1917, it was the Commonwealth soldiers of the line, Canadians, Australians, Indians and many more. This army also included the first of the British Army conscripts introduced in 1916. Then finally, once trained, the Army of Boys and conscripts, training in 1917. These young men, many lied to get into the army, some as young as 15, but they were well trained and well equipped, and stopped the Germans at Operation Meitel in March 1918, and finally defeated the Germans in the summer of 1918, what was known as the Black Day of the German Army, but at massive cost. Tiger Hobbies also do a special platoon set, which you can see on the table, that is an actual establishment of a British infantry late war platoon. 1 officer, 1 sergeant, 3 rifle squads, led by a corporal, and a machine gun section, armed with the famous Lewis gun. The Lewis gun was introduced to the British Army in about 1916 to replace the heavy Vickers gun. A great gun, the Vickers gun, but very heavy. So these were put down in their own specialist units. This was a US weapon, but strangely not adopted by the US forces. They decided to go for a French gun called the Shawshot, absolute horrible gun. And when the First War started, or the Lewis gun was introduced, there was only 4 guns per battalion. By the late war, there were 4 machine guns per platoon. We're still waiting for Armies in Plastic to do a set of British soldiers in the early war period with the soft hats from the start of World War I, and I'm sure they will come. We have a selection of the soldiers with us today. Of course, the platoon, which I talked about earlier, plus the Germans here with Stahlhelmets, which is the steel helmets from the middle to the late war period. We've also got the Germans in the famous Pontiac, the Pittelgrauber. We've also got the Uhlans, the German Lancers, and also the British cavalry, featured in the famous film War Horse. So we've got British Lancers. We've also brought along a selection of some of the other models from the period. So from here we've got the Camel Corps, which I'll talk about a little later. We've got woodland Indians from the French and Indian Wars, or the 7 Years' War, and we've also got the Rogers Rangers, the very first special forces. In the centre, we've got a couple of British regiments from the Napoleonic Wars, the famous 95th Rifles, Sharp's lot, and we've also got British Line Infantry in red, classic red. And over here, a small cannon crew from the American Civil War. And in front of us, we've got the packs of the individual exclusive regiments, PALS regiments from World War I. The range which Armies in Plastic do well is the Army of Sudan at the end of the 19th century, with the battle against the massive Mahdi army. These sets included mounted camel soldiers, which are on the table, as well as artillery and infantry. Back in 1902, the novel Four Feathers was published, one of the great adventure stories that has been filmed a number of times, including Four Feathers in 1939 and Storm Over the Nile in 1955, and even in 2002, based around the fictitious British regiment called the Royal North Surreys. With the Armies in Plastic, you can recreate many scenes from this wonderful story, plus soldiers from the actual battles, like the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, where a small British force finally defeated the Mad Mahdi. Thousands and thousands of the Mahdi soldiers were shot. They had spears and shields and old muskets against machine guns. Not only do we have the Anglo-Egyptian army, but also their foes. For the Mahdi, we have both mounted and infantry, plus the Barger warriors, known to the British as the Fuzzy Wuzzies. That of Dad's army fame, Corporal Jones, they don't like it up 'em. All the toy soldiers that you see on the table and many of the sets can be found at Tiger Hobbies at www.tigerhobbies.co.uk.